JoePags.com, also Newsmax TV. Really glad to have you here on the Joe Pags Show, and so glad to have my friend, my mentor, great pastor from Hagee Ministries, Cornerstone Church. It's Pastor John Hagee. Pastor, how are you?
Pags, I am doing wonderful. This is a great and historic day, and it's a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to see you, my friend. You know, when I saw the president come out today, I said to myself, A, I've got to talk to Pastor. B, this is really going to happen. Pastor, we've had, I think, the past 3 or 4 presidents all say that, well, we should definitely do this, and Jerusalem is the capital, but none of them had the intestinal fortitude to actually do it. Why do you think this president had that wherewithal?
Donald Trump is a cut above an ordinary president. I think it'd be honest to say that he's not a politician.
Yeah.
He is a person who has personal convictions, and he pursues those convictions with a very bold and raw kind of courage that's a phenomenon to American politics. I know that for the past 20 years, politicians have said, we're going to recognize Jerusalem, we're going to move the embassy, and none of that ever happened because they became surrounded by professional advisors that filled them full of fear, saying that the moment you do this, the whole Middle East is going to explode into revolution and war and so forth. But whenever I was invited to the White House to have dinner with the president, we talked for the better part of 2 hours about things in the Middle East. And the last thing he said to me as I left the White House dining room, he said, other presidents have promised and have failed you, but I will not disappoint you. Today,
it's amazing.
Today, President Donald Trump kept his promise, and Christians and Jews are dancing in the street, both here at home, and I'm sure when the sun rises in the morning in Israel, they will be also. It's a joyous day.
I want to talk about the holiness of that place. I also want to talk about the geography of the place and what the Jews have always done for Christians and for Muslims there, which I don't think is reported much. But I want to go back to the president and his ability to look you in the eye and say, I'm going to do it. You believed him, didn't you? Because here's a guy who is a businessman, who is an American who loves this country and doesn't see the political gain out of lying to somebody.
He's a man of his word. If he says he's going to do it, count on it. It's going to happen. Look at all the things that he's accomplished in this year as the president, fundamentally with his own party not supporting him. The establishment is very much mystified by who he is, but he is a person of conviction. He pursues those convictions, and today he fulfilled a promise that he made, and thank God for this happy day.
Of course, from Hagee Ministries, also Cornerstone Church, it's Pastor John Hagee. Let's talk about the geographical place, because I think that the layperson in America, and maybe even across the globe, thinks that Jerusalem is a place where the Jews hate the Muslims hate the Jews, they hate the Christians, when in reality, that place has been protected by Israel and the Jews for Christians, for Muslims, and for Jews, of course. It's actually a place where all 3 religions coexist quite well, isn't it?
It is indeed. Jerusalem has been the capital of Israel actually for 3,000 years. 3,000 years ago, King David captured Jerusalem from the Jebusites, and Jerusalem became the capital of Israel, uniting the southern states and the northern states, and produced in Israel what is referred to in history now as the Golden Era of Israel. It was a geographical land mass that's infinitely larger than what Israel has right now, and David was a very powerful and influential king. But he captured that city long ago. It became the capital city. The Jewish people have recognized it as the capital city, but it has become a political football in recent decades, thanks to the United Nations and Yasser Arafat and people who were trying to manipulate it for their own personal benefit.
And the problem is that people like Hamas and Yasser Arafat from the PLO, they've claimed that, no, that's not yours, it's ours, and that's why we haven't recognized it as the capital, because of their claim?
That's one of the reasons why. People have to understand in the matrix of the Middle East, when a boss goes to a peace meeting, a negotiation meeting, he has no more authority than the butler in any building. He just has no authority.
Okay.
Hamas is a terrorist organization that rules the Palestinians with an iron fist.
Right.
Think of them as a dominant mafia that controls a neighborhood.
Okay.
If a boss did anything that Hamas did not want him to do, they would shoot him. That's why Yasser Arafat, when he was invited to Camp David in the Clinton administration, the Prime Minister of Israel, Barak, made an enormous concession to Yasser Arafat, gave him 96% of everything he wanted to have peace with the Palestinians, and in less than 60 seconds, Yasser Arafat said no, and the next day he came back and told President Clinton, I would be shot if I did.
Wow.
This is the thing the American people must realize, that Hamas and Hezbollah are terrorist organizations that are controlled, funded, and equipped by Iran. And stunning thing of all stunning things is that in the Barack Obama administration, we gave Iran, the world's greatest sponsor of terrorism, $150 billion.
Amazing.
That money went to Hezbollah and Hamas, who have used it to harass the Jewish people. And in my opinion, they have helped North Korea develop a nuclear capacity that was never theirs. Our money did that.
It's Pastor John Hagee, Cornerstone Church, Hagee Ministries, talking about the fact that the President of the United States today made a proclamation that Jerusalem will be recognized as the capital of Israel, and it could take a couple of years, but we're going to move our embassy there. Immediately, Hamas said, we're going to do a day of rage. I don't know what a day of rage looks like, and I don't know what they think they're going to get out of making that proclamation, but the weight of the world, quite literally, is now on the shoulders of President Donald Trump. The world is rallying against this move. Even people in our own Congress, as you know, who have said and have run and have campaigned on the fact that they believe that Jerusalem is the capital, the rightful capital of Israel, now they're even backing off. How does he come out of this and keep his head above water? He's got every side pulling at him now.
Well, back to the original premise.
Yeah.
Donald Trump does not see himself like a politician. He sees himself as a man that has a conviction, and he's doing everything in his power to achieve what's in his agenda based on his conviction. And he's trying to get the Republicans to help him, and many of them are not. Many of them are fighting him as hard as the Democrats. But he is pressing, trying to achieve what he has promised the American people. And he's doing a fabulous job with unprecedented harassment, even by this investigation committee now that's far beyond its scope of what it was originally intended to be.
Yeah, and that special counsel's got to be shut down. I mean, you've got moles that were like part and parcel of the Hillary Clinton campaign that are in there taking part in this investigation, trying to undermine a duly elected president. It's Pastor John Hagee, Hagee Ministries, Cornerstone Church. Pastor, I've asked you this before, but I think we're getting closer to an answer. With Jerusalem being announced as we will support it as the capital, and we're going to move our embassy there. What's the end game in Israel with the Palestinians? That whole entire area has been inflamed for so long. Is there a peaceful solution ever? As you said, they were offered 96% of what they wanted and said, I would be killed if I took that deal. It's either 100% or nothing, and 100% means Israel doesn't exist. What's the end game? Can there be peace?
Well, what we're seeing right now in the Middle East, that as we speak, The Russians are building a jet airstrip 31 miles from the northern border of Israel.
Didn't know that.
And in the previous wars that Hamas and Hezbollah have had with Israel, they did not have an air force. But very, very soon, when that jet airstrip is completed, just 31 miles from Israel's northern border, there will be Russian aircraft on that airstrip. They may be having Syrian insignia, but it is supplied by Russia, and it's going to be the most aggressive and vicious war since the Six-Day War, and it's not very far in the future, because Hezbollah and Hamas have 150,000 rockets that they have prepared to launch against Israel, and their game plan is to flood Israel with rockets so that the Iron Dome system will be incapacitated because it just can't handle that much. And Israel's Air Force in times past has been able to stop the war in a very short period of time. But if there's another Air Force in the air, the boutique wars are over in the Middle East, and this next one is going to be a major confrontation.
Pastor, what's the deal with Hamas and Hezbollah? And the reason why I ask is it the enemy of my enemy is my friend? Hezbollah, I thought, was Shia. I thought Hamas was Sunni. I thought they hated each other. They're joining forces to the destruction of Israel, and they're happy to do that?
There's one thing that where the radical Islamics in the Arab world hate above all else, and I'm saying they hate Israel more than they hate each other.
Wow.
And if there's common cause, they will unite to come against Israel. In the Bible, 3,000 years ago, the prophet Ezekiel said that in the end of days there would be a king of the north. We know that to be Russia, that would bring with him Persia, which is Iran.
Right.
And the other nations are named. Turkey is one of those nations named. And that they would form a military of Israel. It's known in theology as the Gog-Magog Wars. And in my opinion, when Russia moved into the Middle East with its military force, one, they are not going to leave the Middle East until they're driven out of the Middle East, and that's going to require a major military confrontation. It really, Jerusalem may in the future be used as an excuse, but there's a storm brewing that's of major proportions, and it's not very far down the road.
Pleasure. If I'm hearing you right, it's going to get worse before
road, and Russia and Putin
it gets better, but that's to be expected when you take
are pushing the whole project.
And he, of course, firm stand, and you basically draw a line in the sand. President Obama drew a red line, didn't mean anything. This president draws a line, means something, right?
It does. It does mean something, and that's why that the Arab world is reverberating now with all of these threats. But you have to remember that in history, they make threats. In 1948, they were going to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
In 1967, they said we're going to destroy the Jewish people, and in 6 days, the IDF wiped out 6 Arab armies that had been funded by Russia. And now they're coming up with the same thing. I have absolute confidence that the Israeli IDF will be more than sufficient to defend himself in the future. It may be more severe than anything we've seen lately, but I have absolute confidence that Israel is going to be the victor in anything that happens in the Middle East in the foreseeable future.
I love that you made some time for us, Pastor, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, Pags.
Thank you, sir. We're back after this on the Joe Pags Show. Stay right here.